the credit is phased out once you hit 33,500. What this proposal does is reference adjusted gross income, and then allows the threshold to be the greater of the 33,500 or the income threshold limitation for reduced price lunch, which is determined every year under federal law. So in some cases, this amount could be greater than the 33,500, and I give an example there in the summary for a family or a household of 4. And then in the repealer, we just repeal the current definition of income in the credit because that's no longer necessary as we have this new kind of two-pronged, the greater of definition of income within the provision.
Thank you, Ms. Pollock. Mr. Wilms or Bjorn, do you have any comments about the numbers?
Sure, Mr. Chair and committee members, just going over briefly in the order that they discussed it, you should have 4 revenue estimates that were included, or excuse me, 3 revenue estimates that were included in your packet. The first is from property tax research and covers the provisions that Mr. Sylvia discussed. The Class 4D provision affects the state budget by increasing state paid property tax refunds. Those effects begin in fiscal year 2022 and are approximately 2.6 million in an ongoing way. The TIF provision has no state budget effect, though in the revenue estimate it notes that it may have local impact to the tax base and future payments. And then moving on to the provisions that Ms. Pollock discussed, there's 2 revenue estimates for that. The charitable subtraction for non-itemizers, that has an impact in fiscal year 21 of 26.9 million and grows by a small percentage each year due to growth in the credit. One thing to note about that is there's some interaction if the state does conform to the federal partial above the line deduction. This estimate would become slightly cheaper by about 3 million, and it's noted in one of the bullet points of the estimate. So again, as we mentioned yesterday, some attention on how those 2 things might work together is warranted. And then finally, for the K-12 education credit phase out adjustment, those are sections 3 and 5 of the proposal. Those that's approximately $13 million each year on net, beginning in fiscal 21 going forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilms. Morning, Senator Bach. Cheer up. So, all right, I gotta get serious. So first up to testify, to speak to these provisions, I have Ellen, hey, good morning, Senator Bach.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chairman, before we get too far.
Sure, yeah.
When we come back Monday, we're gonna have less than 3 weeks left in the session.
Yes, sir.
It seems like any kind of a conference committee process is gonna be pretty difficult under the circumstances.
Yes,
So
sir.
I'm just wondering if leadership, House and Senate, have given you any kind of a committee target. We're hearing stuff that costs an awful lot of money. And I'm just wondering, are they going to give us a big target like that, or are we going to raise some money in the bill and pay for it ourselves, which other committees don't have the ability to do? But kind of what's the path here with all the stuff we're hearing? Do we know yet?
Well, we was going to mention this at the end of the committee hearing, but we plan on having a bill presented. I think some of you have been made aware of this already. We'll have a hearing Tuesday. It'll be a bill form we'll have on Tuesday. We'll walk through it, and it'll be up for a walkthrough and more comments and conversation. And then sometime soon thereafter, we'll plan to get a bill to the floor, a regular tax bill to the floor. As far as targets, some of that's up to leadership and management and budget, but we're going to present a plan, and then we'll go through the debate and the negotiations thereafter. So no hard money target, and we'll have a hearing on Tuesday to go through a bill. All right?
Okay, perfect.
And I'll just remind some folks about that process for Tuesday too. Thank you, Senator Bach. So first up, we have Alan Arthur Aon about the 4D We have two testifiers. After Alan Arthur will be Mr. Steve Min. Okay, Mr. Arthur, you're up.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman Chamberlain, committee members. I am Alan Arthur, the president and CEO of AON. We're a Minnesota nonprofit organization that produces, preserves, owns, and operates 5,586 affordable apartment homes for 12,000 people throughout the Twin Cities. AON's purpose is fairly simple, and that's to make home possible for people who wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity. So thank you for your time today. I represent several nonprofit housing providers in Minnesota who have programs or properties in the 4D program. We ask you to support and pass the 4D revisions, which is section 1 of the language, I think, before you today. Before we were all hit with COVID-19, there seemed to be a broad bipartisan agreement that the legislature should address the critical needs of affordable housing this session. I recognize that you and your compadres now face a very challenging crisis on many fronts. Affordable housing, though, is one of those fronts. And affordable housing was in crisis before the pandemic. For many years, Minnesota has been losing affordable homes faster than we've been building new. It's why AON has been working hard in the past 5 years to preserve 3,000 units, 3,000 affordable apartment homes before they were lost to the marketplace. Last year, I stated in a Star Tribune interview that decades of converging economic, market, social, and policy trends were pushing us towards 20 years of what will be the worst housing situation for lower income households since the Great Depression in the 1930s. That seemed alarmist to some people at the time, but unfortunately it is now almost a given. I'm happy to, if you want to reach out anyone to give you some details about why I believe that's true. For properties in the Class 4D category, existing law requires that the threshold at which the reduced tax rate of 0.25% is set be adjusted upwards each year through market evaluation. The problem is that we have seen those tax valuations increase by an incredible 62% over the past 6 years. The second, lower tier rate is now largely out of reach for us. For most affordable housing units, this is a reduced or entirely wiped out the theoretical tax benefit of the original state policy to encourage the retention of affordable units and the development of new ones. Property taxes on Class 4D properties have skyrocketed. For both nonprofit and for-profit operators, our ability to reinvest in properties has been greatly reduced. The retention of low-income properties as affordable and decent assets to serve the community is at great risk. Instead of providing an incentive for new production of affordable units, we actually face a disincentive now. That was the situation before COVID-19 and its economic fallout. Now the problem we face is worse, much worse. Our new economic realities put greater and greater pressure on those of us who operate affordable housing, and it of course is absolutely crushing the families and individuals who live in our apartment homes. These are the people who have lost their service wage jobs by the thousands. There was a powerful case for this bill before COVID-19 and this economic fallout. Your support at this change, at this critical moment, can help make an important positive difference for thousands of people across our state. From Hibbing to Hendricks, from Roseau to Rochester, our state is going to see a doubling of homelessness. This bill, the proposed improved 4D program, can be an important tool in your toolbox to keep homelessness from tripling or worse. Your support at this critical moment can make that difference. I want to thank you, Chairman Chamberlain and members. I want to thank each of you so much for your work and your leadership. We all realize the difficulty of your jobs right now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Arthur. Members, when we get through the testifiers, we'll let folks ask questions after each piece here. Next up is Mr. Min. Again, I'm trying to get used to this, but 3 to 5 minutes for testimony should be pretty good. All right. Just a reminder, all the testifiers. Thank you very much. So Mr. Min, you're up. Welcome to the committee. State your name for the record.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee members. My name is Steve Min. I'm the Vice President of Loopy Development Partners. My wife and I are primarily housing developers, but we also develop other real estate types. More than 70% of the housing work that we do is affordable. We concentrate our work in the metropolitan area, and in the past 10 years, our firm has built about 1,000 units of affordable housing, and we have about another 500 units in our affordable development pipeline over the next 3 years. So mom and pop operators that produce housing locally. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. I want to thank Senator Senjum for being the chief author, and Senators Anderson, Rest, Dietzich, and my own Senator Franzen for co-authoring it. I'm here as Alan's counterpart representing the for-profit sector of the affordable housing development community and operators in both Greater Minnesota and the Twin Cities metropolitan area. I think Alan summarized well the problem which Senator Senjum's bill is positioned to fix, and I just would like to add just a few comments to Alan's observations. First, let me offer that Senator Rest was very farsighted in championing Class 4D 7 years ago as a way to incent affordable housing in the state. But I don't think any of us could have imagined back in 2013 that increases in property valuations by the neighboring market rate properties would have such a dramatic effect on the affordable operators like myself and Mr. Arthur. The value of 4D property across the state over the last 4 years has been nothing short of meteoric in terms of its escalation. The threshold adjuster has escalated 62% in just 5 short years, and affordable properties no longer have sufficient cash flow to maintain and preserve the investment. We are out of alignment with the tax rates of affordable housing providers in other states, and this phenomenon is affecting how investors look at affordable development here in Minnesota. Affordable units outside the metro area are not benefiting from the second tier rate in 4D because, as Alan mentioned, the threshold has risen so high, and those values are not at the same level that the metro properties are at. Taxing housing at a single tier of 0.25 would restore the original intent of the 4D class, limiting the property tax burden of affordable units, and align Minnesota with other states that are either abating or eliminating property tax on affordable units more aggressively than we are. The affordable housing crisis, as Alan pointed out, and I think he aptly described, is a problem, and this legislation before you is an important part of a statewide solution. I would like to briefly address a desire that we've heard from some legislators about including some guardrails about this policy so that the proposed rate reduction results in preservation and investment of affordable housing. Our coalition is committed, very committed to this principle. Both nonprofit and for-profit developers are prepared to annually certify compliance with land use restrictions and the ability to certify our adherence to our original written financial pro formas. That's all we're looking to accomplish here. At a time when economic repercussions from the pandemic are still largely unknown but undoubtedly grave, this proposal is a very cost-effective way for the legislature to address the untenable crisis that both nonprofit and for-profit developers and operators are now facing and will continue to face for years to come. Again, Mr. Chairman and members, all of us who develop and operate affordable housing, both nonprofit and for-profit alike, appreciate your consideration and interest in tackling the problem around Class 4D, and I would be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Min. Members, you have any questions or comments about the 4D proposal? Not seeing any hands. Senator Rest, go ahead. You're on mute. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Min, for your comments and about my work on this area of affordable housing. I don't know if you've seen the property tax run that Mr. Arneson made on the proposal, and I wonder if I have a couple of questions, but I wonder if you have any comment about the level of tax shift to other properties. When I look at it, it doesn't seem to be that dramatic in Greater Minnesota, although there are certainly areas that in Greater Minnesota that do make use of the property tax classification for affordable housing, but there is a significant effect in the metropolitan area. And I wonder if you have any comments on that to start with. And then I have a second question about establishing guardrails and how meaningful they can be. So I wonder if you would
Yeah, I just got that.
address that, and I would welcome comments from Mr. Arthur as well.
Thank you, Senator Rest. Mr. Min or Mr. Arthur? One of you
Mr.
want to
Chairman,
take that?
and Mr. Chairman and Senator Rest, thank you for the opportunity to address that. I have seen the run that was done, and I do have a few comments to share. If you'll indulge me, I have to put the readers on. I've reached the age of no vision available. The numbers that excuse me. I think the numbers are correctly concentrated in the metropolitan area, but there are some evidence of escalations relative to market rate properties. I think I'll highlight these to you. It's an 18% increase in market value statewide, which is a lot for affordable properties compared to how market rate have advanced. It's 20% more in Duluth than what market rate properties increased over the same time period. It's 33% more in Olmsted County, 69% more in Anoka, 39% more in Washington. And then you start getting close into the metro, it's 534% more in Dakota County, 323% more in northern Hennepin County. I won't even make apologies for Minneapolis. That's 967% over what regular apartment values have increased, but Minneapolis has its own problems. I think the point I'm making is that it is all throughout the state. It's just the magnitude of where new development is occurring is triggering the value increases more intently where new development is happening, and that's obviously concentrated in the metropolitan.
Thank you very much. On the guardrails, what do you envision the accountability for them being placed, the administrative burden to make sure that certain activities take place? And it seems to me that there's a proposal for like self-certification that activities like maintenance of buildings, et cetera, is maintained, but or is ongoing. But how can we put in place the guardrails? And I do think they are they're necessary. I think they are. I appreciate that those that support this bill see that they're necessary, but is that to be a burden on or responsibility, even if you wouldn't consider it a burden, on the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency? And also, and this is just a technical issue, I have a lot of work going on outside my house right now. They're digging up all the gas lines. And I wonder, Brian, if you would allow me to control the mute button.
I was just trying to help you out there. Sorry about that. You got control of it.
So I would ask Mr. Min if he would have a comment about the nature of the guardrails that he sees as possibilities, or Mr. Arthur, and the and who would have the administrative responsibility of overseeing them, and how much should we rely on self-certification?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Rest, I think our objective in suggesting self-certification was to not overburden Minnesota housing. All of us who certify annually for the 4D rate already have a single-page online submittal that goes to the agency. Our thinking on self-certification was to enhance that certification, which is always subject to spot enforcement or review by the agency at their discretion, but to not increase their burden. And I think our primary goal, and I'll be very brief, is to kind of keep the system the way it works. It's elegant as it is and simple as it is. And we would all, in addition to certifying that we meet the 4D requirements presently, certify that we're continuing our land use restriction agreements and that we're meeting our original pro forma intent. And I think it's perfectly appropriate if the housing agency wishes to spot audit. I think we'd welcome that. I think we want to show compliance and good faith, and we honor this principle. Maybe Mr. Arthur has other ideas. Thank you.
Mr. Arthur?
Mr. Chair, Senator Rest, committee members. Yes, I think we all agree that there should be some kind of guardrails that do not add additional burden on the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency. Just a couple of things that have been brought up, for example, are regular inspections that would create great burden on the agency. I think, cities already inspect properties. They already say whether properties are in the condition that they need to be in. And I suggest we would rely on that front with the cities and communities themselves to say whether the properties are staying in shape. And if they're not, I can think of a couple of properties right now that the cities have taken away their licenses, and of course they should lose their 4D if they happen to be in the 4D program. A couple things that have been brought up, to be specific, are first of all, allowing the residents themselves to help enforce or monitor the situation by posting in every property that gets 4D the situation that they have 4D, and because of that, the rents have to be below a certain level, and let the advocates and residents themselves monitor the situation for folks who might be violating the provisions of 4D. So I think there are some ways to put guardrails in place that aren't an undue burden on the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency.
Okay, thank you. Senator Dietzick, you had your hand up? I see you there. You still have a question, Senator Dietzick, or no? All right. I'll mute her again. All right. Testifiers next up, testifiers for education credit. Mr. Norris with Youth Prize. Good morning.
Right.
Welcome to this committee. Please state your name for the record and who you're with.
Hey,
Again, 3 to 5 minutes about there. Okay.
great. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Matt Norris. I'm the Policy Director and Director of Minnesota After School Advance at Youth Prize. I want to thank you for the opportunity to come before you this morning to urge you to increase the woefully outdated income loan for the K-12 education tax credit to help respond to the immediate needs of Minnesota families related to distance learning resulting from the COVID-19 outbreak. As an organization focused on increasing equity with and for youth all across Minnesota, Youth Prize is especially concerned about the impact the shift to distance learning is going to have on youth from low-income families in our state. One tool that's already in our state's toolbox to ensure students have the support they need is the K-12 education tax credit. And it can really help in two different ways. First, and most immediately, families can use this tax credit to cover 75% of the cost of up to $200 of computer hardware like Chromebooks or wireless hotspots to help with distance learning today. But second, in the coming months, families are going to be able to use this tax credit to get help paying for academic enrichment like tutoring that's going to be really critical for ensuring that our low-income students do not fall further behind their more affluent peers because of distance learning. Youth Prize's Minnesota After School Advance program, which it runs in collaboration with Venn Foundation, has been helping families utilize this tax credit to pay for Chromebooks and laptops for distance learning for about the past month, and the demand has been just overwhelming. To date, we've shipped over 200 devices and the applications keep rolling in. We've literally had to start buying Chromebooks by the pallet. There's been a lot of important discussion about putting emergency dollars toward broadband access in greater Minnesota. But even if we make those critical investments in internet access, we can't overlook the fact that many students don't even have devices with which to access the internet. While districts and charter schools are doing their best to equip students, we know that there are students in need of devices still all across the state. Just under half of the applications for Chromebooks for our program are coming from outside the 7-county metro area. And we've received applications from 81 cities so far and counting. These are cities like Bovey, Eagle Lake, East Grand Forks, International Falls, Madelia, and Rushmore. However, the current income limit of $33,500, regardless of household size, for the maximum credit excludes too many Minnesota families who need this assistance more than ever right now. The emails and calls that I receive from families over the income limit but still desperately in need are heartbreaking. Like one from a single father up on the range who's trying to raise his teenage daughter alone after losing his wife to breast cancer. He's drawing on SSA survivor benefits and his 401k just to make ends meet, but he doesn't meet the current income guidelines for this tax credit. Or one from a mother trying to raise 4 dependents on less than $50,000 and trying to explain to me that she just doesn't have it in the budget right now to pay full price for a Chromebook. The income limit for this tax credit hasn't increased since 1997. That's over 2 decades. Raising it would be like flipping a switch. It would instantly make tens of thousands or perhaps even 100,000 Minnesota families eligible for this assistance that has become vital to their children's education. We also have suggestions for how to streamline access to this credit, and the shift that's included in the proposal before the committee today to use adjusted gross income instead of the more complex household income definition is a good start. This policy response would not require setting up any new programs to be administered by a state agency. It's already built into our tax forms. It would even apply retroactively if families have already purchased an eligible device this year. And if families don't have the cash flow to wait for the tax credit and next year's tax refund, our Minnesota After School Advance program is ready to help with no interest, no fee advances using the Department of Revenue's assignment process. This is a common sense solution that has bipartisan support in both the House and the Senate. It is well past time that we update the income limit for this tax credit, and doing so has never been more important and has never been able to provide immediate relief to so many families. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Members, any questions for Mr. Norris? I'll take a look here. 1 second. Members, any questions? Okay, well, I don't see any questions here. Okay, fine. There we go. All right. Yeah, someone's sharing their screen here. We're gonna, hang on, everybody. Hold on. We're gonna get this sharing screen off and get back to normal. I was very sorry, Mr. Norris and others, but I know it's not me.
Mine says I'm seeing Senator Rest's screen.
Oh. Here, let's unmute Senator Rest.
What did I do?
You hit a button somewhere, I think. Did you?
Well,
It looks like we have your screen up here. Unshare, you have, if you hit a button, go in and unshare your screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure this out. I don't think I hit anything, but I don't know what happened here.
I don't
Mr. Chair, members,
Yes.
at the bottom of the screen, there's a green button that says share screen. If you take your cursor all the way to the bottom, there should be a, right in the center, a share screen. So Senator Rest, perhaps if you unclick that.
I don't, I don't, I'm working back and forth between my laptop screen.
There we go.
Here we are. Hey,
All right, nobody
is that better
move.
now?
Nobody move.
Now I can't see on my laptop screen where my camera is.
You're beautiful now, Senator Rest.
The rest of it is. I really am working very hard on this, but
Okay, we're muting you now.
I have not been very successful, and I apologize.
It's all right. Okay. Okay, that's good. We're back to normal now. Okay, members, any questions for Mr. Norris and Youth Prize? I have one quick, just a quick review for you, Mr. Norris, is that, so Youth Prize works by people giving their credit to you, assigning their credit to you, correct? And then you give them the money, and then when the credit comes back, you take that, correct? So it's kind of a loan, correct?
Yeah, so the Minnesota After School Advanced Program of Youth Prize, what we do, some families, they don't have the cash flow to spend the money now on a Chromebook and wait for the 75% from the tax credit to come back to them, next April or March when they file their taxes. And so what we do is we've got a group of donors who've created a loan pool that allows us to make no interest, no fee loans to the families using the assignment process that the Department of Revenue has set up. We essentially advance them that money, and then there's a process with the Department of Revenue where when they file their taxes next year, that money comes directly to us to repay that loan. It really is a way to eliminate a cash flow barrier that can prevent a lot of low-income families, especially who need it, from being able to utilize this tax credit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Norris. We're gonna thank you very much for the testimony. We're going to move on to the last item on the agenda for the TIF provisions in Bloomington. This will promise to be less, a little more sticky, as they say. So we have 4 testifiers lined up for the TIF provisions. Mr. Hagan, Mr. Griffith, is it Mr. Verbrogi, and then Mr. Massman. So Mr. Hagan and Mr. Griffith, we'll go in that order. So Mr. Hagan, you're first. Go ahead. Is Mr. Hagan there? There, or is it Kagan? K-Hagan. Yeah, Mr. Hagan. Unmute you.
Chairman Chamberlain and members of this committee, thank you for giving me this opportunity to testify this morning. My name is Kurt Hagan. I'm Senior Vice President of Development for 555 at Mall of America. And as this committee knows all too well, the current COVID-19 pandemic has had severe and damaging effects on our national, state, and local economies. More than 400,000 workers in Minnesota have been displaced by closed businesses as we deal with the current healthcare crisis together. Businesses like Mall of America, which is one of the cornerstones of the state's tourism, hospitality, and retail industries, are now in serious jeopardy. The current crisis has had a devastating impact on the mall, which sits at the intersection of these critical industries. We're proud to be a leader in each of those business sectors. We appreciate the opportunity to share with our story with you this morning. I'd first like to give you a few sobering industry statistics. The tourism industry has been devastated. U.S. travel estimates the loss at more than $1.2 trillion, which is 9 times the impact of 9/11. The hospitality industry stands to see record losses in 2020, with hotels potentially losing 30 to 50% of their value. The estimated time of recovery for these hotels is 3 to 5 years. The retail industry generates nearly $7 trillion in consumer activity, mostly in shopping centers, and supports nearly 1 in 4 American jobs. This industry is expecting revenues to decline by up to 50% over last year, and we believe this will be true for Mall of America as well. As you know, Mall of America is a unique international destination attracting more than 40 million annual guests, including 16 million tourists. And the mall provides an annual economic impact of more than $2.5 billion each year to Minnesota. The mall has over 70 different tour packages, 34 different countries, and fills more than 1.3 million hotel rooms each year in Minnesota. Since opening in 1992, the mall has generated over $2 billion in state and local tax revenues and it has supported tens of thousands of construction jobs. And prior to this crisis, we employed 15,000 Minnesotans. Mall of America has been a major contributor to the state's economy for more than 27 years, but the current crisis has jeopardized its future. We understand that as state leaders, you're facing unprecedented challenges, and as you grapple with how to stabilize the economy, we ask you to consider the bill language presented this morning. One key to surviving this traumatic healthcare and economic event is to find creative solutions to help impacted businesses weather this storm and get people back to work. And we believe this bill is a creative solution that could help provide an important lifeline to businesses like Mall of America. I'd like to share a couple key points about the proposed amendment with you. First, there's no impact to the state budget. The source is collected TIF. It is modeled after the 2010 jobs bill, in which certain TIF provisions were temporarily lifted to get people back to work. It provides emergency loans patterned after the federal payroll protection program for hospitality and other businesses that don't fit into the existing programs. Cities maintain oversight of the use of these loans. And there's a clear nexus between the source of the tax increment and the creation and the retention of jobs in some of the state's most impacted industries that created this TIF. For Mall of America and other companies that don't fit into the federal relief programs, the coming weeks are critical. And without current government support, the outlook is dire. We believe it's imperative to act now to provide vital assistance to allow these impacted businesses, which are important contributors to our state's economy, to stabilize their financing and return to full operation as soon as possible. We appreciate your consideration and working together to protect our tourism, hospitality, and retail industries. Quite frankly, we need your help. I'd like to thank Governor Walz and members of his administration, and to the Senate and House for your strong leadership throughout this crisis. Your efforts have been deeply appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hagan. Next up, Mr. Griffith, Bill Griffith.
Thank you, Chair Chamberlain, members. My name is Bill Griffith, representing Mall of America, working with Kurt Hagan on this bill. I just a few additional comments about the 2010 jobs bill. It was a real coming together in 2010 following the financial crisis of business, industry, labor, government, and the bill was enacted early in that session to create jobs, get people back to work. And so looking back at that bill, there was a relaxation or a lifting of certain TIF restrictions to get people back to work. And it was about a 2-year kind of loosening of those restrictions. They sunsetted after 2 years. And I can tell you that those provisions actually stimulated projects, got people back to work, and were critical in terms of what the legislature and the government did to help get people back to work. This time, the construction industry, as we know from looking outside our windows, is actually busy. It's a good thing. Hardest hit, as Mr. Hagan testified, is the travel, tourism, retail, and hospitality industries in our state. A very important part of the state's economy. We're not just simply slowed down by 5% or 10% or 12%. We're 100% stopped, as you know. No one is going anywhere. No one's buying any dinners other than takeout. No one's traveling. No one's making travel plans. And so this is really a critical time for this industry to have a lifeline. Now, we don't know exactly how this bill will impact communities across the state, but one of the key provisions is the localities will have the ability to look at their tax increment districts and see if for a time they can repurpose some of those tax increments to really cast a lifeline to these critical businesses. This will be done locally with local input after hearing, and we think it's a really sensible way to pattern what the federal government has attempted to do for small business to these tourism businesses, some of which cannot take advantage of the federal funds. And so that's really the essence of this. It's patterned after the 2010 jobs bill. It would sunset, and it would be something that would be locally approved and locally managed. Thank you, Senators.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. Jamie, please welcome to the committee. State your name for the record and who you're with.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Senators.
We'll get to questions when we're done here. After these testifiers. Thank you. Sir, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chair and committee members, my name is Jamie Verbrugge. I'm the city manager in Bloomington. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you this morning. I want to thank all of you for considering the bill. I think it's really important that the legislature is offering solutions to help local governments and businesses in communities across Minnesota right now to navigate this crisis. It's important for cities to have tools to address the unique needs that each community is facing in ways that will work best for those communities. Providing flexibility for cities to utilize tax increment is a tool that should be considered. Tax increment is, at its core, one of the best demonstrations of the public-private partnership model between business and local government. And frankly, that makes local economies successful. Cities across this state have made decisions to invest precious taxpayer dollars to support economic development because they've made the determination that it benefits their local economy. So from the legislature's perspective, I think it makes sense now for that same tool to be available to save those local economies. With regard to the specific bill, I do want to clarify this is not a Bloomington bill. We did not put this forward and the city does not have a position on it. However, our city council has just recently amended our legislative platform to support tools to address the economic crisis that's caused by the pandemic. And I would offer these comments in that spirit. It's important to remember that every tax increment district around the state is different. The communities are different. The businesses are different. Every community is experiencing the economic pain of this pandemic in a different way. And if the legislature is supportive of this tool, I would ask that it also support local government's discretion to tailor the tool to the specific need that's unique to that community. So while this bill gives local governments discretion of whether to provide a loan or some other form of assistance, it doesn't necessarily give the discretion of how. So the bill would be improved if the language was permissive rather than being prescriptive by saying the loan may be forgiven rather than shall be forgiven. As I said, the needs of each community and the needs of the businesses within those communities are unique. Providing flexibility in how the loan is structured allows the local authority to balance the interests of the community and of the businesses. The bill would also be improved, I think, if it allowed local authority flexibility to use the increment to address other urgent needs in the community as a result of the crisis. As I mentioned, every district is unique. Not every business in those districts will have the same financial needs or the same economic pressures, but the community might. I think that giving cities the flexibility to use tax increment to protect residents and other businesses within the community that may not be within the tax increment district, to protect them from potentially dire economic impacts would be a much more global solution and would certainly be a welcome one from the perspective of cities. Appreciate you giving me the time, Mr. Chair and Senators, and happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Next up, we have two more testifiers, Matt Massman. You here, Matt? There you are. Please state your name for the record and, there we go. And you may proceed, sir.
Good. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Matt Mossman, Executive Director of the Minnesota Inter-County Association. Our counties include 1/3 of Minnesota's residents. Appreciate the opportunity to talk, and I just want to preface my comments and say I appreciate all of the work of the legislature, the governor, and others to make sure tools are available and be thoughtful about the challenges, the real challenges that property taxpayers and others are facing. And we share that value and that concern at the county level. As you know, a number of our counties have taken steps under their authority to abate property taxes to a later date, and others are considering doing so depending upon their unique individual circumstances. So we understand and appreciate the goals of both this provision and the TIF provision. And so really this morning, I just want to offer some observations for the committee to consider as you move forward with this legislation. And really just from the perspective of calling attention to the fact that both the 4D proposal and this TIF proposal have the potential, while they have limited state budget impact, they certainly have the potential or likelihood of shifting taxes within taxing jurisdictions that could impact or would impact all other property taxpayers. And of course, all businesses across the state that are impacted by COVID-19 and all property tax homeowners across the state that are impacted by COVID-19 are potentially going to face challenges. So just a few observations. The TIF provision, the proposed language would potentially result in tax increment that would otherwise, excess increment that would otherwise be potentially redistributed to other taxing jurisdictions being redirected for this purpose. That's really less of a concern for us because I think potentially that state dollar amount would be small, but this is not a targeted approach to only one taxing district. It is a statewide approach. And we would just note that as a tool, it has the potential of picking winners and losers in some taxing districts because not every taxing district is going to have either the resources within their tax increment districts to help all businesses. So just understanding that a statewide approach and a national approach like the loan programs, the low interest loans and forgivable loans that are being made available to businesses under the CARES Act and other proposals are more broad-based solutions that provide the opportunity to assist all business property taxpayers and taxpayers in the state. A couple of quick things. I would note that the language is very broad. I think that the last testifier called that out to some extent also. And there appears to be limited or no coordination between the benefits that would be available under this proposal to businesses and the benefits that are also available under federal and state programs, quite frankly, for potentially similar purposes like payroll protection for employees and assisting businesses to stay open. So again, we appreciate the goal and just want to suggest that the legislature consider whether or not the property tax system and the TIF program is necessarily the most well-suited economic assistance tool in terms of being able to make sure that all business and homeowner property tax owners that need assistance, that this is the most universal and best tool to solve that challenge, which is a real one. Really just a brief comment on 4D, a similar issue there. As you all know, the tax levy that's not paid by 4D property owners is paid by other taxpayers. So I want to be sensitive to the fact that certainly the affordable housing challenges that have always existed are going to be even intensified now, but we're also going to be seeing a lot of property tax homeowners that are trying to keep their homes, renters that are trying to stay in their units at market rate, and the shifting of taxes onto other taxpayers will just make it all that more challenging to keep property taxes available for all property taxpayers. So again, wanting to just make the point that we want to make sure that it's the most effective tool in the toolbox. There's a lot of housing tools out there. Affordable housing is part of our platform. It's a challenge all across the state of Minnesota and something that needs to be addressed. The question here is whether or not the tax shifts make that a challenge for other property taxpayers that are going to be problematic, particularly during this economic situation. So with that, Mr. Chair and members, I don't formally have a position for or against. I just wanted to call out some of the challenges that we see. And again, appreciate all of your work. I know that county boards are also getting questions and being responsive as best they can with the limited authorities they have to the challenges that property taxpayers are facing as a result of the COVID-19 situation here. So thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you, Mr. Massman. Members, questions? If not, I have one. So a couple things for I don't know who best to direct this at. Maybe Mr. Hagan to start. So just to clarify, either Mr. Hagan or maybe Council Ms. Pollack,
but when I read this, I just want to make sure. So we understand that these increments are supposed to be used to pay back the bonds and the debt. So in this language, is that still the primary purpose here? That's, you're still going to keep money to protect that, correct? How does that, the first sentence, or any other law to the contrary, except the requirement to pay bonds to which the increment are pledged. So how does that work, Mr. Hagan? Or maybe I'll go to Mr. Hagan, you first, then I'll go to Ms. Pollock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the intent is to be a loan to use, and again, patterned after the payroll protection program. So it's really trying to follow the federal guidelines that were intended to support these businesses that unfortunately for Mall of America and many businesses don't fit within the federal programs. So it was patterned after the payroll protection program with similar uses for those funds.
Okay. Okay, so and then there was a suggestion that we take the shall to make a maybe at the 9.9, or make utility payments may be forgiven and not shall be forgiven. Well, another question is the authority to spend tax increments under this subdivision expires December 31st, 2021. Can Mr. Hagan or Mr. Griffith kind of explain that piece of it? Why until December 31st, 21?
Mr.
Do we need that much time?
Mr. Chair and members, Bill Griffith. Yes, just looking back to the 2010 jobs bill, some of the restrictions that were lifted were sunsetted pretty quickly, assuming that once the economy was rolling again, those restrictions would be necessary to restore the original intent of the program. And so that was enough to get many, many projects in the state going and then restore those restrictions. The idea would be, just addressing your other question, the idea would be that any existing pledge would not be disrupted by this new tool. Pledges to bonds, pledges to notes, those would stay in place and couldn't be disrupted by this program. That can certainly be, but the sunset provision was really again modeled after the 2-year program that followed in 2010.
And thank you, Mr. Griffith. One more question, and I'm terribly sorry, for Boogie, Jamie?
Yep.
So you had suggested a couple of things that might make it a little bit better, but still doable. Would you repeat that? You had a couple of items. You wanted some more flexibility for the city or any municipality that has this TIF?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. The first has to do with the nature of the loan as it's proposed currently. It says that it shall be forgiven. As I understand it, if the recipient utilizes it for those specific purposes, I think it's not a loan at that point, it's a grant. And so you're essentially giving taxpayer dollars directly to the business, which is, I think, a little different than how TIF has normally been treated. And I think that the bill would be improved if you were to expand the flexibility for utilizing tax increment, because not every city is going to have the same circumstance where you have a business that may be as impacted as the Mall of America or any of the hotels in our community. We're experiencing this thing in a way that is really different than many communities around Minnesota. And so, our work together with Mall of America and our hospitality industry is going to be really important. But there are different industries in different communities across Minnesota, and how they experience the economic hardship is going to be different. So by broadening the eligibility for utilizing the increment to maybe meet those unique needs in the community would probably help most of the cities across the state of Minnesota.
So you're saying in the area where it talks about a loan to private businesses that were impacted by the closings and the orders, so you have ideas of how that could be more flexible then?
If we say it may be forgiven as opposed to shall, I think it becomes much more palatable to cities.
Okay, so that's what you're talking about, not the
correct.
other piece of it. Okay, all right. All right, so that's what we're talking about. Okay, thank you. I think that'll do it for me right now. We'll go to Senator Dietzick and then Senator Rest. So Senator Dietzick.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm on 2 calls right now, and I knew that was going to happen before, that the minute I had to go vote in the other one that I'd be called on. So I apologize again. And I did have questions on that, but I'll go back and watch the tape and then follow up with, I think Mr. Min and Mr. Arthur had some 4D comments, and so I'll go listen to those and ask them questions if I need to. But
Okay.
regarding this, so I was not in the legislature in 2010, and so I will go back and look at what that jobs bill did, because I think this is an interesting concept. I just don't know if this is the best way to do it. I'm always just concerned about unintended consequences. I have a question for Mr. Verbeug.
Good, I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
Pronounce your last name again, sir.
It is Verbrugge. Thank you.
Verbrugge. Okay, thank you. So giving the city some flexibility to use that dollars, because that TIF money is not going to general fund. Do you think this would be a better option to maybe allow the cities, again with some guardrails, to use that money, to move it into their general fund to be used for certain things, which may be loans or grants to businesses? Just kind of your thoughts.
Mr. Verbrugge, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Dietzick and committee members. I think that because each community is going to be different, what you've suggested, Senator Dietzick, would be a reasonable approach. The fact is that a lot of communities are going to see revenue loss that isn't going to be easy to offset. And so if the utilization of excess increment is going to help them address broader community needs, if it's the determination of the local authority that the community would be better served by utilizing it to supplement losses in the general fund rather than to specific businesses. I think the philosophy of local control in this instance would be good for most of the cities. I think it's consistent with how tax increment authority has been granted just generally, is that the cities have the authority to make the decisions about what's in the best interest of their community. That's why tax increment is used. We often use it to make sure that businesses that are vital to our communities either remain there so that they don't leave, or they're able to grow, or that we're able to attract other businesses. Because when we make these investments in economic development, it's good for the whole community. And sometimes when we're in crisis, we have to make decisions that are going to be in the best interest of the whole community as well.
Thank you. Senator Dietzick, any
I have
further?
just one follow-up, and I'll have to think about this, because I represent Minneapolis, and it's a large city, and I have a lot of TIF districts over here on my end of the city, and I know there would be concern if money from what would be considered this end of the city goes to benefit the south end of the city, when we have a lot of needs over here too. So I think I'm going to have to think through that, but I think I appreciate the conversation, so thank you.
Thank you. Senator Rest.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I would like to ask Mr. Sylvia, because mention has been made of the 2010 jobs bill, which I was involved in, and comparing this proposal favorably with that one. And it seems to me that there are significant differences, and that comparison should not be made. But just to get the facts before us, I wonder if Mr. Sylvia could let us know the differences in the 2010 bill relative to the language we have from SC 7522. And then I have some questions and comments.
Mr. Sylvia.
Mr. Chair, Senator Rest and members, the 2010 language was structured similarly in that it was temporary authority to stimulate construction. The mechanics of the language allowed municipalities, after public notice, hearing, and approval of a written spending plan, much like the language that's in front of you today, to grant TIF authorities temporary authority to use the excess increment for the construction of new buildings or to rehabilitate existing buildings. I think a difference between the language from 2010 and the language that appeared today is sort of in true tax increment financing fashion. There was a but-for test that was required in 2010, and that the powers would not be allowed to be used under the temporary authority without if the development would not have created jobs or the development would not have occurred but for the incentive or the use of tax increment. It also required construction to begin prior to July 1st, 2011. So for the 2010 bill, it was more of a construction, jobs, economic development to stimulate construction rather than the language that's in front of you today, using the tax increment to provide loans to businesses that were not directly related to either the tax increment financing district for which the money is used for, or perhaps located in a TIF district.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Senator Rest.
So, Mr. Chairman, so I find it extraordinary that we would have local governments making loans to private businesses. And although I know that this bill has come in from the Mall of America, it is indeed a statewide bill. There is no but for, it's just you can just vote to do it. And I believe it's very worrisome to use excess increment in this fashion. And certainly if anything moves forward, we should indeed not allow the loans to be forgivable. Although we know that even if we say they may be forgivable, we know that in a couple of years, every time across the state that excess increment is used in this fashion, those entities that had the loans will come back and ask that the language be changed to must be forgiven, or they will prevail on the local governments to indeed do that. And the object of tax increment in terms of moving forward with construction like we did in 2010, because we knew we were trying to come out of the recession, I think that purpose will be subverted. And as I read the language, it also is like you can take excess increment and, quite frankly, almost spend it any way you want. So if they took the excess increment from the Mall of America tax increment financing district, even in how complex and complicated it is, there is no requirement that the city of Bloomington use those dollars for businesses within the Mall of America. They could use it anywhere else. Now, I don't think that the Mall of America businesses would be very happy if the excess increment from their tax increment districts was being used for other businesses in Bloomington, whether or not they themselves are supported by a TIF district. So I find that I'm very uncomfortable with that. And I don't know that this is the way to go to help businesses within tax increment districts or for cities to get involved in making loans from these dollars to private businesses, which is pretty extraordinary in and of itself. I think it, we use the word unprecedented all the time, and maybe every single thing we're doing right now seems to be unprecedented, but we've never done anything like that. And we can say, well, it's because of COVID-19, but I think we need to be very cautious of moving outside of the tax increment financing law. I also know that in the past, when we were involved in the recession, that we also looked at the construction activities and the rules under the general tax increment financing law, and in particular, the problematic situation with the 5-year rule. And I certainly do expect, although some people want to get rid of it entirely, that we are going to have to look seriously about lengthening the 5-year rule within districts that have been recently, or within the last 2 or 3 years, been certified. If it is the case that the Mall of America was in such dire straits, and I appreciate getting the information, I'm a bit surprised that this was not special legislation for the city of Bloomington and the Mall of America, rather than a general law change that we really don't know the ramifications of it throughout the state. So as written, I'm highly skeptical and certainly very uneasy about local government, cities in this instance, having the ability to make loans out of the excess increment anywhere they choose, not even within the tax increment districts themselves, related to construction, which is what we did in 2010. So I'm raising issues. I don't really expect answers to them at this point because they're not specific to the language itself. But I think we need to be very cautious about going down this particular path as a way of providing help to local businesses, construction projects within TIF. Is this a proper use, even in an unprecedented time? Is this a proper use of excess increment? It is not just the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And we have to be very careful about not being really concerned with the purposes of one section of law that provides economic tools and muddying it with proposals that really operate outside of that. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to make these extended comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Est. So, Senator Senjum, you're up. Go ahead, sir.
Just a comment or a question anybody can perhaps answer. I'll try to be brief. We're all familiar with our life experience in Rochester, for instance. Most TIF districts are now applied to a specific project, and I think you said it, Mr. Chairman. How do we take a development agreement that was put together around a TIF component, and that TIF component was intended to be there to financially make the development agreement work with the developer? How do we take that TIF out of that signed legal agreement and apply it elsewhere? That's my question.
Excellent question. Mrs. Sylvia, do you have any thought on that? That is a excellent point.
Mr. Chair and members, the language of the bill specifically found on lines 9.1 and 9.2 essentially notwithstand restrictions found in TIF law or restrictions found in a tax increment financing plan. I think it's important to note that the language also found on lines 9.2 and 9.3 do require that increment to pay bonds for which increments are pledged are first and foremost not going to be disrupted by this language. Those bonds will be paid for from the increment that's collected. The language of the proposal provides that sort of any excess increment above and beyond would be the increment that could be spent for these purposes. I think you could also look at it such that using increment for these loans or subsidies or other forms of financial assistance can be viewed as sort of another allowable use under current, that's not allowed under current TIF law. Each TIF district has certain requirements of what the increment can and cannot be used for. But the language essentially provides that any restrictions found in the tax increment financing plan, except for the requirement to pay those bonds for which increment is already pledged, essentially wouldn't apply, as would other restrictions found in TIF law concerning the use of excess increment or the use of where and when increment could be used.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvia. Senator St. John.
Well, thank you for that. There's probably more for me to understand on this one. I just wouldn't. I would wonder why, once the increment is there and the development is satisfied financially, why the city would not turn the TIF off. That's all.
No, good point. Good point. Members, any other questions, comments? Seeing none. All right, so it will wrap up. As I said at the beginning, we'll have a bill on Tuesday. It will be in bill form. There will be no surprises in that proposal. What we heard last Thursday and this Thursday will, with probably no exceptions, will be what is in that proposal next Tuesday. So we've heard it. We heard pieces last week. We heard these proposals this week. They'll be combined into one bill and then submitted for comments, questions, and amendments. So like a normal process, we'll do a walkthrough and a markup as people see fit. Refresh yourselves on the amendment process through the Zoom and electronic format here. Just briefly, if you want, we'll have amendments available. They'll be accessible. We'll be able to pull them up on the screen. When amendments offered, we'll take a recess so everybody can see it, get a good look at it, be a couple-minute recess. We'll come back and then we'll have either council or the member or both, whatever order, go through the amendment. And then if we have a vote on an amendment, you have to have your pretty face on the screen. That's the requirement for the rules. If you're going to vote on an amendment, you have to have your pretty face on the screen. All right. So that's just a high level quick, and we'll go over it again Tuesday, but you can also ask supporting staff and council on how that's supposed to work. Okay. So for some of these changes too, there might be some of these proposals that can't make it in the bill from last week and today, or we might have to make some changes. For example, if the TIF piece gets in here, there will probably be certainly a change where from a shall to a may be forgiven, and other things like that. If that happens, we will be sure to let everybody know and point that out. So between now and next Tuesday, work through those issues and other problems. There's a million other things out there that we would want in a bill, but we're going to get as close to COVID issues as we can right now. Economic recovery, including the charitable gaming, which is important, and lower wealth school districts. So members, with that, any final comments? Anybody have an idea, thought, concern? If not, then we stand adjourned, and we'll see you next Tuesday, 8:30. All right. Thank you very much. Have a great day, everybody.